We just got episode 5 of the Cassian Andor series, and as always, despite a lack of action in this episode, there were many Easter eggs, references, callbacks, hidden details, etc, etc that I'm here to talk about in this mini recap slash breakdown and ending explained and episode 6 theories video. I've got a fair amount to say, so I'm going to try and make this as quick as I possibly can. The episode kicks off on Coruscant with Cyril Khan being sad and upset, sat in his bedroom, just like half of the Star Wars fanbase after last episode, because they didn't particularly like it. Obviously, last episode Cyril Khan lost his job, and he's clearly in shock about that happening, as he followed like the rule book so closely throughout his life, like he was pretty much a Boy Scout. He gives me strong John Walker vibes from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, who obviously did the exact same thing, and one mistake, everything was over. And then we meet his mother again, and she points out that he is sat in his chair slouching, which is obviously a minor thing, but it is a stark contrast to how Khan used to represent himself, which just shows how much this has affected him because of how much of a shock that it is. She gives him like a speech about leadership and stuff like that, but Khan clearly doesn't want to hear it from her. And after this, we get our first Easter egg of this episode in the form of some space cereal with the classic blue milk being poured on top, which was of course first seen in A New Hope in the Lars homestead. We then go to Aldani, and Clem wakes up in a panic as everyone else and all of his stuff is just gone. But notice how the first thing that he does is check his kyber crystal. Now that's most likely because it's the most valuable item that he owns, but also remember that a kyber crystal is semi-sentient, so maybe Cassian is forming like a bond with it. It's always been highly speculated that someone like Han Solo is like mildly force sensitive, and Cassian could likely be that as well because he's a great pilot, he's a great shot, so maybe he is forming a connection with this kyber crystal because his midichlorian count is pretty decent. But we then learn that his stuff is missing just because Vel had her doubts and got Skeen, another member of the crew, to check his stuff basically. Speaking of, Skeen then shows off like his tattoos to Cassian as he sees that Cassian recognizes them, and each one is to represent like a different prison that he's been to. One of them is called Crate Head, of course a reference to the Crate Dragon, which is the like massive dragon seen in episode 1 season 2 of The Mandalorian that got absolutely bodied by our boy Din Djarin. Clem then points out that he went to the SIPO Youth Center at like 13 years old, and that may be what we see in the trailer here, although he doesn't look 13 years old in this shot. Not even close. So this could also be where Cassian goes when he gets captured on the mission in next episode. But I'll speak more on that and some theories for episode 6 at the end of this video. Skeen then says the full metaphor that the episode is titled after, that being the axe forgets but the tree remembers, which is a metaphor about revenge. And we learn that this revenge that Skeen wants to get on the Empire is due to his brother. The death of Skeen's brother was caused by the Empire like invading and flooding his farmland, but we also then find out it's something worse. The Empire didn't kill Skeen's brother, and this is not a topic that should be taken lightly, as it is a massive problem in the real world, but taking your own life is also something that's been seen in Star Wars before in the Clone Wars, but for a vastly different reason. Now, November isn't far away, so I feel like it's a good time to mention the like Movember movement. Movember focuses on like preventable reasons why men die 6 years earlier than women on average, including mental health related things. So if anyone wants to support the Movember cause, then you can check the first link in the description, or if you yourself need any help, then the Movember website also has many things that you can read up on, or ways to get in contact with people that can help you, so be sure to check it out. We then get some more milk in this episode of the Andor series for some reason, but just like the black melons in the Book of Boba Fett, it apparently tastes horrible, and apparently blue milk is the only one that just every person likes. This is then followed by 2 moments of Cassian just showing how like clear he is in every aspect to pretty much every member of this crew. The first one comes when Vel asks Cassian,
"Calibrating the weight."
What about it?
How would you do it?
How would I know the weight? Is this a test?
It's a simple question.
in which Cassian, or Clem, I keep calling him Cassian for some reason, realizes like how unprepared and how little that this group actually know about the mission that they're about to go on. And in this realization, Clem subconsciously takes like a more leadership role as he says that he's going to be the pilot. Vel agrees, but then Cassian also acknowledges that the other members of the group won't take too lightly to another change in plan, so he says that she can say that it was her idea all along to make Clem the pilot. The next one is that he points out during Taramin's practice drills rules that the gun or the blaster must always be on the outside, so Skeen and Taramyn should switch places. Now the reason for this is obviously the people on the left are going to be shooting left and the people on the right are going to be shooting right, and if you don't have to reach across your body to get to the blaster on your right to shoot left, it allows for a quicker draw. Now we see Dedra Meero for the first time in this episode, and she's just trying to figure out if all these different incidents of like theft are actually connected in any kind of way. Hosnian Prime is mentioned along with Kessel, Jakku, Fondor, Base K and Steerguard. Now Hosnian Prime is the main planet in the Hosnium system, which came victim to Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens. Kessel is the planet famous for its spice mine, seen in Solo, The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. Jakku is of course Rey's homeworld. Fondor we don't really know too much about. The only thing that I found is that Count Dooku said that they wanted to join the Separatists. I didn't find anything on Base K, and Steerguard is where Cassian stole the Starpath unit from. She comes to the realization that these are all like too random to be random, and I at first thought that it would be Saw Gerrera responsible for all of this, as obviously he's quite intelligent. He'd know not to climb the same fence twice, as Dedra Meero says. But then I remembered that he tends to like to cause damage on pretty much every mission, and I mean that literally, like blowing things up. So I think that these organized acts of theft are more people like Cassian stealing from more people like Luthen. Now at the campfire, Vel calls out a toast to the rebellion, and it's not often that the rebellion is actually named, so this suggests that Vel knows more about like a larger rebellion than we first thought. And this is something that's seen before, for example the Ghost Crew in Star Wars Rebels. Hera Syndulla was kind of like the Vel of her cell, like she was the leader, she was connected to some higher up, and the rest of her crew didn't necessarily know too much about a larger rebellion. But Hera is better, just so we establish that real quick. Hera Syndulla's better. Ahsoka Tano was kind of like the Luthen. She was the one that got in contact with Hera. She was like a main part in the larger rebellion. And then people like Ezra, Kanan, Sabine, Zeb, and Chopper were like the Taramins, Skeens, Nemix, Sinters, and Gorns. And I guess you could include Clem into that as well. Like they were just members of the cell. They didn't really know too much, but they were good at what they do-ish. Now in said campfire, they actually burn the 3D model that they had of the Imperial base, which is like representative of what they are about to do. Not literally, they're not starting a fire of course, but you get what I mean. And just before leaving the camp, we can see that they actually let out their animals from their cages. Obviously they're not going to be returning to this place, so they don't want to leave them trapped. And inside the Imperial base that they've just started to walk towards, Gorn organizes that there will actually be less workers inside of the base tomorrow, which is when the mission will happen. This is of course because like the event, the star event in the sky is happening tomorrow, so a lot of the workers actually want to see it. So it is a really, really good plan, and it truly shows that Gorn is actually intelligent, because not only does it cover his back, because it makes sense why less workers would be working, because people actually want to see this, but it also like halves the difficulty of this mission. On the walk, Skeen comes up behind Cassian and cuts like the kyber crystal necklace off of him, as he doesn't trust someone that's carrying like an item this expensive on a mission like this. We all of course know that the reason Cassian's holding this is because it was a payment from Luthen, and he doesn't really have anywhere else to put it. And he later admits this, not the part where he doesn't have anywhere else to put the kyber crystal, but that he's being paid to do this job, and that is his sole motivation. However, Skeen claimed that this kyber crystal was worth 30,000 credits compared to Luthen's 50,000 estimation, or is actually a minimum, I believe he said, of 50,000, which either shows that Luthen was exaggerating to convince Cassian to get on this mission, or further shows that this team lack knowledge. When Clem admits that he's being paid to do this job and says that that is his sole motivation, he'd never take such a huge risk for no personal benefit. It is a complete contrast of what he does in Rogue One. The Battle of Scarif was a huge risk. He gets no money or anything from it, yet he did it without any hesitation. Now back to Khan, he's sat in his room all sad again after his blue milk cereal, and we see in the background blurred out he's got like some action figures. This is likely a callback to both Jin, Erso and Cassian having like toys of real things in the Star Wars universe, Jin's being a stormtrooper and Cassian's being a bantha. But this just shows how like weird Jin, Cassian and Khan actually are. Like imagine collecting Star Wars toys. That could never be me. Now I've got hat head, all that for a little joke. Right, Khan then brings up like the bounty image of Cassian, and this is when he realizes what his future actually holds. This is his purpose. This is what he does next. His mother was asking, what does he do from here now he's lost his job? And this is exactly what he does. Just because he's no longer a member of the Pre-Maw doesn't mean he can't carry out his mission of stopping Cassian and avenging the 2 fallen Pre-Maw members that Cassian murdered in episode 1. Skeen apologizes to Cassian for taking his kyber crystal, and this apology was in the form of the story about his brother that I talked about earlier. And this just shows that in this episode, like, the group have seemingly gone on like the classic hero's journey. Like, they started at a big high, they were all prepared to go on this mission, and then they hit a massive rock bottom via like many arguments, including the big one where people lose trust in Vel because obviously she didn't tell anyone that Cassian was being paid. And then it's going to go to another high next episode when they hopefully succeed in their mission against the Empire. Earlier we found out that Vel and Cinta weren't following the same plan as like the main group, and now they leave to go off to who knows where, but presumably to go on comms with Luthen, as we see him for the first time in this episode, listening out for people on a comms device, presumably for Vel, just like I said. And behind him we get a better look at some of the artifacts that we saw in last episode, specifically what we thought were holocrons, but they seem way too big to be real ones, so maybe they're just fake and they're just like collectibles for weirdos so obsessed with like Force related artifacts such as Luthen. And if you want to see all the weird artifacts that Luthen has in his antique shop, then just click this video up here. There's quite a lot of them. It's only like 3 minutes long. But if you want to finish this video first, I'll put it on the end screen. Luthen then doubts himself, the mission, Cassian, and he clearly appears like very restless, so he's been stressing about this mission, and he does admit that he's probably been caring a little bit too much about it. Not that he shouldn't care, but that he risked the success of the mission because of how important he thought it was. And with that and some relationship issues with Mon Mothma and her husband that I didn't cover this episode because they were irrelevant, the episode comes to a close. So I was actually quite disappointed with this episode. I really did think that this was going to be the episode the mission goes down in, especially considering last episode ended with them going over the plan. But apparently we need 2 episodes to set up like this big mission, so I am excited for it. I really hope it doesn't disappoint, but I have enjoyed the show so far, so I am hopeful, and I don't think it will disappoint me. I am really liking the characters of Cassian, Luthen, Mon Mothma, and now Skeen in particular. Those 4 have been standouts, as well as the girl that I've forgotten the name of from the first 3 episodes. And as for explaining the ending, I've already broken it down scene by scene, but what does the ending actually mean for next episode? I think it's very likely that Luthen, like, turning off the comms will have repercussions for the mission, and it will lead to some kind of problem, because 2 of the team members were going off presumably to get on comms with Luthen, and now they can't do that, so obviously the plan isn't gonna work how it was intended. I think this could lead to Cassian getting imprisoned, whether that be via him sacrificing himself to save everyone else, or just by pure accident. And I was right earlier when I said that Cassian definitely doesn't look 13 in the trailer sequence when he's in like some kind of prison. And then I think it would be really cool if Luthen went to Saw Gerrera to help bust Cassian out of prison, especially if Cassian is the only member of the team that got captured. Of course, let me know what you thought of the episode. Leave a like if you did enjoy, and if you want to see more Cassian Andor series content. Also, subscribe so you see that content. Here is the video I was on about earlier, and if you want something else to watch, then here is the video that YouTube thinks you will like most. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.